But there's parts of that I appreciated because any corrections that I need to make on my course, and me kind of trying to be the man that I thought a man was supposed to be, even though that was only a couple years they were together, it really kind of dialed me in a little bit more because of that structure that he provided. It wasn't easy.
The future of music.
The future of music. The future of music.
The future of music.
The future of music.
The Future of Music podcast.
Hey there, and welcome once again to the Future of Music podcast, where, as always, you know what we do. We show you how to survive and thrive in the future of music. It's in the name. Okay, it's in the name of the podcast here. And I am Ryan Withrow. My other host over in one of these directions, who knows which way it's going to point me, is Jonathan Boyd.
At least he's honest.
And Jonathan, other than your head, you're just kind of blending right into the background with your shirt color. I like how you've decided to go similar neutral tones.
I don't like to stand out,
And I like that you have you've implanted a lamp in the side of your head at this point, just for ease of use when you're walking around.
Reading light.
Reading light. So, first of all, man, it's good to be here with you. To say the least, this is a big episode. And when I say big, first of all, I mean like really good content, really good stuff. I may be biased, but also who we are going to have on the show today has worked with some incredible legends and has really dug himself in as a massive, massive, superior level mogul in the music industry and beyond. But I kind of know who he is. I kind of know what to expect. So, John, what should they be excited about? What should pump them up right now?
Of course. So today's guest is actually probably somebody who most people wouldn't know about, but by the time you hear his story, you will be absolutely blown away. So today we're going to be talking about how our guest went from being literally on his own, living his own life at 14 years old, and touring as a broke musician for years, and somehow managed to become a super successful music industry mogul who has literally worked with Little Richard, Jerry Lee Lewis, and he even recently signed Jason Aldean, among a lot of others. So we're going to be diving into how the heck did he do that and his absolutely crazy story, common mistakes a lot of artists coming up today make, and also, of course, some proven shortcuts that you can take for making it in the new music industry.
Excellent. Another proven shortcut to see our episodes pop up and be alerted is to like, subscribe, and click the alert button on YouTube and follow us on your favorite podcast streaming platform. That was beautiful. Gosh, I'm proud of that one. All right, y'all. As you can see, we are joined today by somebody that is way more stylish than I am. 100%. Yeah. It's honestly probably than a lot of us, but it's okay. We're here to see and learn more than just style tips from you, Bernard. But we have Bernard Porter. Man, I looked up so many things. Obviously, a bio's all over the place, and I could probably write a novel that is just your biography that I should be able to list because of all the incredible accomplishments you've been able to have in this life. And we'll put all of these accomplishments, of course, in all the show notes and the description that you have. But I mean, at the high level, a seasoned entertainment executive with decades of experience, man, nationally renowned for so many things. But a lot of it is also in that A&R expertise that you have. Super successful entrepreneur as well. A lot of high profile joint ventures across corporate and private sectors. You have literally appeared as an entertainment expert on NBC. You're the chairman and CEO of PCG Universal. You have so many affiliated companies, including labels, management, artist development. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about that as well with one of those, PCG Artist Development, which is a true leader in career and artist development for established and emerging talents. But again, I could go on and on. I'm just going to instead say thank you for being here. We really are excited for this. We've been looking forward to having this conversation with you. And thanks for being here, Bernard. We appreciate it.
Well, I always enjoy the opportunity to be able to sow into others, because we'll get into it, but that's what's got me to where I am, is having people sow into me.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, that's really great.
We really appreciate that. So Bernard, you mentioned, where you got to, how you got to where you are. And I really want to, there's so much to talk about here. There's so much to unpack. And I really want to um, have you kind of walk us through how you very first got started, even getting into music. What got you into music in the beginning? What led to, one thing obviously led to another. What happened along the way? And then how are we sitting here right now having a conversation?
Okay. Well, for the most part, I was fatherless. I didn't really know my father. I only met him a couple times, and then on one of the times that I actually was with him, um, he tragically died from a heart attack in my arms. So the story starts out pretty tragically, and I didn't really know what was going on, and unfortunately, that's one of the few memories I have of my father. I could tell my father loved me. And I wish I had had the chance to get to know him, but my mother and he were separated at the time, and I was over visiting with him. One of these this episode happened. So I really never had an adolescence either, because I had to go directly in from being a child to being a man. I don't remember a time when I didn't have to worry about my mother. My mother was a very beautiful, caring, loving person. But for her to be able to take care of me and herself, she had to work multiple jobs. So I didn't see a lot of her either. So I ended up raising myself. Luckily, to kind of fast forward uh, uh, through a lot of tough years, I remember not having heat. I remember having to be in one room with blankets over the doors to keep warm. I remember worrying excessively just about everything. Until that day, my mother bought me a guitar. And that guitar changed my world. That guitar became my focus. That guitar became my brother. That guitar kept me from the things of the world that probably would have already taken me out, because all around me were people doing things that they shouldn't be doing. And it's easy for someone to say, oh, I would never get into a gang. But you put yourself in that culture, when they become your family and your protector, and you everything, that they become a family to you. I luckily was able to avoid that side, but I understand it. I understand the street mentality. It's almost like God put me through a series of events to show me all types of different scenarios so I could speak to it. Whether it be an investment banker on Wall Street or somebody that's in one of the more popular street gangs, I believe I could sit down with either one of them and have a conversation and make both of them think that I was real. You see? So the guitar, I was a natural. I put in a lot of time on that guitar. We lived out in the country. We moved from Virginia to a small town in Kentucky when my mother remarried a master sergeant in the Army. That was an eye-awakening experience, guys. To go from no structure to a guy that's whipping your butt if you don't clean your plate. But there's parts of that I appreciated, because any corrections that I need to make on my course, and me kind of trying to be the man that I thought a man was supposed to be, even though that was only a couple years they were together, it really kind of dialed me in a little bit more because of that structure that he provided. It wasn't easy. It wasn't an easy situation at all. But I can tell you that I put so much time into my guitar playing that people would give directions off of me, meaning they'd say, okay, I want you to go down here and take a left. You're going to see a farmhouse on the right. You're going to see a young boy you'll see a young boy on the steps playing a guitar. That's how you'll know that's the right house. Take a left. That'll take you to town.
That's awesome.
That's how much I was in it, But from that point, we ended up moving back to Virginia because of that divorce. And I kept still active on this guitar, right? At this point, I'm 14 years old. And everybody did tell me, I get a job as a stock boy at a grocery store, and people know I'm a guitar because I'm very proud of it. I've got the guitar on my T-shirt. You know, hey, you play guitar? Yeah, I play guitar conversationally. And everybody says, you know what? You look like a guy named Sid Hudson. That's like he's like the musician in Virginia, Sid Hudson. Are you his little brother? I said, no. They said, you need to look this guy up. You look like him, and he would be a good mentor. So over time, I end up looking this guy up, and we really hit it off. And he really becomes my first mentor in my life. Now, Sid Hudson ended up being Barbara Mandrell. So in the 1970s and 80s, she was the equivalent of Carrie Underwood in the country world. And he was her musical director. So he was going back and forth into Nashville. So that I had hit the jackpot with a mentor that had who was the protege of Joe Pass.
Oh, wow.
That's amazing.
And I know you guys know who Joe Pass
For
is.
sure.
Oh,
For
yeah.
sure.
So he was basing his curriculum off of studying Charlie Parker licks, saxophone, you know, going in, learning bebop, but applying that into jazz and country, and it just his knowledge. And then he ended up studying under Buddy Emmons for steel. And whenever he would come into Nashville, and what they called the Super Pickers would play back in the days of old Nashville when Demon's Den was down there, and all the players would get together. Sid would be up there with Phil Ball on drums and Ben Brogdon on bass and Buddy Emmons on guitar, and they would take you to school, brother. They would take you to school. Okay. So one thing led to another, kind of drifted up as I grew up, formed cover bands. Back in the 1980s, guys, it was a vibrant time for bands. You could work 7 days a week because culturally in the 1980s, even from a corporate level, people would get off work on Monday and go to a club. That was part of your life. So the bands were having a heyday. To give you a perspective on that, I was running a cover band, making anywhere from $500 to $7,500 a week for my band, with rooms in some cases. So this afforded me that I went out and bought my first Silver Eagle tour bus. So here I'm big dogging it, man. I got my own tour bus. I got my own tractor trailer, hydraulic light systems. I was really investing. If I knew what I knew now about investing in that equipment, man, I had a fortune in equipment. And we were going up and down the East Coast, playing Orlando, Myrtle Beach, Nags Head, up in Baltimore, Eastern Shore, Ocean City. And that was my life. I was living on the road, living in that bus, playing music, doing what I love to do to a degree. But here's where the shift came. Because I was the bus driver, the manager, the sweeper, the consultant, the problem solver, you know, Future Man. I don't know if you guys knew who Future Man of Bella Fleck and the Flecktones. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
They're Virginia boys too. Victor, Reggie, I know all of them. Grew up with them. Okay. So when I saw Future Man in the garage with the first version of the Drumitar, I took that first prototype on the road with me. And here's Roy Wooten back there triggering 2 QX1 sequencers back in the 1980s with our band. And I'm going to tell you, gentlemen, musicians worshiped us. Most of our audience were musicians coming out, seeing what we were doing, seeing what gear we were using. How do you get that sound? How do you get that tone? We ruled out there during that time. We caught the attention of Clarence Clemens from Bruce Springsteen, the sax player. God bless his soul. That happened when we played a benefit show, and they had to pick a band they would best be able to support him because he was coming in cold. He was a headliner. We were a support band. When he got a load of us, he couldn't stop talking about us. Matter of fact, when they interviewed him, he was talking about us more than he was the charity. Like, I don't know, I've seen stuff here I've never seen before, you know?
Yeah.
So things were going really well back then, and he was going to introduced us to Michael Narda Walton, who was producing Whitney Houston at the time. So we're talking about the quintessential top producer in the industry now that's getting ready to be brought into what we're doing. Here comes my second mentor. There's a guy named by the name of Nabil Kassir. Nabil Kassir brought foosball from Europe to America. Nabil Kassir brought the iron-on T-shirt business to America. If you remember, in the 1970s and 80s, there was a time when we were all wearing these goofy shirts that said "Let's Boogie" and all this stuff that was iron-on. I don't know if you guys remember, but that was him. So he came here as an immigrant and made himself into a very successful entrepreneur that owned hotels and restaurants and nightclubs. And I knew him because one of the major nightclubs that he had in Virginia Beach, which everybody wanted to play because it was a big room, 1,200 seats. It was, used to Van Halen played there on their first tour when they were just getting started. So I used to admire this guy because when he walked in the room, and it wasn't all the time, but he had a presence about himself. He was stylish. He commanded respect when he walked in. It's almost like, Nabil is here. Nabil is here. It was like a wave in the room. And whenever I got the chance, I would speak to him, and he'd always give me some good advice. Till one day I wanted to get paid, and he was in the room with his manager of the venue. And he said, "Porter, I've been wanting to talk to you." And I go, "Yes, sir. Is everything okay?" It kind of scared me that he was in the room. I thought one of my guys had done something wrong. He said, "No." He said, "I've been thinking that I want to start my own company, an entertainment company, to service all the venues and hotels and restaurants. I don't know anything about music. And I want you to be my partner. And I'll pay you this much money a week. I'll give you good health insurance on your wife and new baby. So change going on there. And I'll even help you with a down payment on a house to get you settled." And I was like, "Whoa." So within 2 weeks, I went from a long hair, makeup wearing, rock and roll, going at it, music, I was like, nobody would ever think that I would have left that, to short hair, suit at a desk, just like that. That's how quick that happened. Now, it wasn't the music that I was moving away from. It was the travel and the mother and the janitor and the bus driver and that was killing me, guys. It was killing me. I was 6 foot tall, 135 pounds. Now I looked incredible on stage. But, that was rock and roll, but it was not healthy.
Sure.
I was burning the candle both ears. So that's kind of the first chapter. We can keep going, but I want to just see if you guys have any questions about that. Or
Yeah. How old were you at that point when you made that change?
I was 23 years old.
Okay, so this is pretty young still. So how long would you say you were out there touring and playing and living that lifestyle?
I was living that lifestyle from about 15 years old until that time.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was intense. I literally was not even home. I was living like a gypsy, just everywhere, just on the road, full time. My home base was still with my mother whenever I was there. But it was like going in and getting a good hot meal, getting a good night's sleep, and right back out at it again. That's how intense it was back in those days.
And that makes sense. That makes sense of why you said, you didn't really have necessarily much of a childhood. You were actually working. You were, and I know it was fun, right? Playing music is all about having fun, but you were out there on the road. You were out there doing the thing. And then 23, this big change comes along. So take us through what happened next.
Well, I did that for 3 years, and there was one venue. Nabil always encouraged me to get venues outside of his ownership because that would bring us additional money, like trying to go in and be a talent buyer for another type venue, which I did. We had one of the last supper clubs in America, and a supper club is a club. It used to be a big trend from the 1960s that kind of died out in the 80s. But it's when you would take a date to a very nice white tablecloth dinner, and you would have a show, dinner and a show. That's what a supper club was. Very, very, very nice. You dress up. So I was booking things like the platters and the coasters and the drifters and different things for this venue. There was a remarkable owner of that establishment. His name was John Paris. And this is another venue in Virginia Beach. So John and I became friends, and we started a kind of a ritual that I would come by every Wednesday, and he was Greek, and we would do a little teaspoon of minced garlic with lemon on it. He was always healthy, and he just professed that was his secret. So on Wednesdays, I would find myself going by there doing this shot of garlic with him every Wednesday, and we became buddies, and we would check out whatever act we had on stage and I'd make sure everything was running good for him. And that was kind of the ritual. So on one of these get-togethers, he said, Bernard, you remind me of a guy that used to do exactly what you're doing for me right now about 25 years ago. And he said, he's in Hollywood right now. And he big time, he represents all the Hollywood stars. He said, I was thinking about, would you like to meet him? I said, yeah. So he calls him on the phone. And so he hands the phone to me, and his name was Robert Williams. And Robert said, John's told me a lot about you, and he said, any friend of John Paris is a friend of mine. If you ever want to come out to Hollywood, come on out. You just stay with Deborah and I. We'll show you around, because John said you're a pretty ambitious guy. And I said, wow, thank you, Mr. Williams. I would really love that opportunity. He didn't know me very well, because 2 weeks later, I was there. And here I am hanging out with Jim Carrey, Damon Wayans, all of the people in Living Color, because he represented them. And just the Warner Brothers lot. I mean, it's the first time I went to LA. What an incredible way to go in and being able to experience. He lived in Marina Del Rey, and big, beautiful home. And it was, I didn't want to leave. I mean, it was like, wow, so at the end of it, I thought, wow, this has been a great experience. I guess that'll be all she wrote. We're at dinner, and he reaches over and he touches me on my arm, and he says, you want a job? And I go, yeah. So Hollywood, here I come. So Robert brings me out, allows me to stay with them. I started training. He had a company called Spotlight Limited Enterprises, and Spotlight was the premier comedy company probably ever. I mean, they had everybody. Sherman Helmsley of Good Times, Jimmy Walker, Paul Provenza. They had some musical artists like Jose Feliciano, Harry Blackstone, who was like the Frank Sinatra of magic. They had a very primarily comedy. The focus was primarily booking comedy clubs, corporate events, and then taking those personalities, which were comedians, and brokering television deals. They were masters in that world. J.P. Williams, who is Robert's nephew, is the one that created the whole redneck comedy deal with Jeff Foxworthy, labeled to carry.
Wow.
They were all clients, and JP became he hit the big one.
Sure.
With that. Great guy, still a great friend. Did a favor for me a couple years ago, but iconic in that world with brokering, everything from movie deals to TV deals to that type of thing. So I did that. That was in 91 now. And then all of a sudden, 1990, 1991, the LA riots broke out. So that made me, in thinking of me moving my wife and child there, I loved LA, and I probably, if it had been just me on my own, I probably would have just, been fine. But I didn't know what was going on with the city at the time. There was a lot of turmoil going on in the city. At the same time, Mr. Williams decided they were going to start a Nashville division, and that he was going to move to Nashville. And because he knew I had a little bit of insight into Nashville because of my relationship with Sid Hudson, my first mentor, going into that town with him, and I knew Nashville pretty well at that time. I decided that was the right move for me. So that's what brought me to Nashville in 1991. So I worked under his direction as an associate partner for three and a half years. And then I decided I wanted to start my own company. And so I started a company called Big Fish Entertainment and went out on my own. And that was the first time I had really ever done that. A little scary. And this is what it gets into some of the mentoring now, because that's Tiger Charlie, guys. Sorry about that.
That's all right. I'm a dog man. It's okay.
And this is why a lot of people are shocked that I pick up my own phone. I'll determine how long I'm on it. I'll always be nice to people, but if it's something that I can't do anything, or I just look, good luck with you. This is not for me, and I've got to go. Because time is one of our greatest assets, guys. So with that being said, when I started my new company, I took a phone call from a woman by the name of Sandra Swift, and I didn't know who she was. Picked up the phone. She said, "Mr. Porter, somebody told me that you could help me with this." She said, "My boss has just handed me something, and he does this all the time to me, and I really am not qualified, but I still have to handle it." I thought it was going to be like booking a little birthday party or something. I didn't know, I said, "Well, what is it?" And she said, "Well, we have a company called Associated Publishers Group, which is a book publishing distribution company we just started. We're going to be doing an event for the Booksellers Convention in Los Angeles," which I'm familiar with LA, "at the Bonaventure Hotel. And I need to produce an evening of excitement that will draw every small book publisher to our party to put a visibility on our brand, so we can our objective is to sign up people to distribution. Because all of those people there, the young book publishers, are candidates for our distribution." She said, "Can you help me?" I said, "Well, let me think about it." So I thought about it, and they wanted to get down, rock and roll, have fun, energy. I thought of Little Richard.
Oh, man.
So I ended up contracting Little Richard to perform a 90-minute set at the Bonaventure Hotel. And then on the front end, as an opening act, I put a cover band called the Blues Other Brothers. Think of the Blues Brothers. Well, these are the Blues Other Brothers.
Such a good name. Such a good name.
It's incredible. And they were a killer corporate act. And I'm talking about horn section, and their song, their playlist is just made for dance, 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 get down. So I figured the two of that, I couldn't go wrong. So I pitched the deal. They went for it. I ended up producing everything from the ornaments on the table, to the security, to the production, to everything, the whole look, lighting, everything, did it all. It was close to over. It was 9 months of my work, but it was about $1 million in investment. So from that call, about $1 million investment. So my company made about $100,000 off of that, 10% of that. But here's the real kicker. My mother was a huge Little Richard fan. And when I got his catering writer, you have a technical writer, guys, and you have a catering writer. When you get strong out there with your career, then you can start asking. We've all heard about the M&Ms and that kind of thing with Van Halen. But when you get into that, Little Richard had certain types of teas that he wanted, and certain type of honey. He wanted a piano in his suite. And a lot of times with somebody like that, if you're paying him what he's asking, a lot of times they won't blow the contract because you won't get him the tea he wants. You just, it's a negotiated thing. Well, I gave him everything he asked for, including the piano in his suite, out of respect for my mother. Okay. And I didn't know, it wasn't my objective to meet him, that kind of thing. I would have loved to have met him, but I didn't push it. But all of a sudden, at the end of the event, the road manager comes down and said, "Little Richard wants to know who is the man that respected him here today."
Wow.
And I said, "Well, I'm the one that did that." And I told him the story. but I did that for my mother. He said, well, he wants to meet you. I said, great. So we went up to the presidential suite of the Bonaventure Hotel. There he is on all his glory. He was already at the piano, had a few people in the room. And we met from the moment we met, we clicked. Within the first 10 minutes, we were singing together. If you don't know me by now, I can hear it right now. I was harmonizing with the king of rock and roll, you know. And he said, Bernard, he said, we have to continue to talk. So that led me to over 12 years of doing business with that man.
Wow.
Amazing. He would pick up the phone. Bernard, I need you to handle this for me. Bernard, would you call this person? You know, you could say I was his manager, but there was never any kind of formal agreement. But yeah, I would be places with him. I'd go and, he still did things outside of me, but that's just the way it works. He came from a different way of doing business. So from that aspect, Richard goes to Europe with Jerry Lee Lewis in a package. And he didn't tell me he had done this for me, but I get a call at the house and he said, this is Jerry Lee Lewis and I'd like to talk to Bernard Boyd. I hung up on him. I thought it was my buddy Kevin pranking me. And then when he called back, I realized, oh my God. I said, Mr. Lewis, I am so sorry. I said, I thought that you were my buddy Kevin Neal. We're pranking each other and he's a good impressionist. And he said, oh no, that's okay, man. He said, well, Richard Penniman told me all about you. And he said, I need some help. He said, would you come down to my ranch and talk to me? And I said, yeah. So I flew into Memphis, Tennessee. He had a car waiting on me. And we drove down to Nesbitt, Mississippi to his ranch. And I remember them putting me in his living room. I didn't see anybody but the person that let me in. And he walks out with he had a pipe. And he looked like he had just taken a shower. So he had his white bathrobe on. And all he said was, I want you to take over. That was it. And in my mind, it's going to be crazy. This is going to be crazy. Because, I knew the reputation, Gosh. And so I had to have an honest talk. I said, look, Jerry, of course I want to do it. I mean, how could I turn this down? But I said, we've got a lot of things we have to fix, Jerry. You have a bad reputation of not showing up. And I said, are you going to promise me that you're going to do your best, that we can be consistent? Because he was banned at that time, gentlemen. He was banned from Las Vegas, not because of talent. Not because of ticket sales, because they were worried he wouldn't show up. He didn't show up for someone, and they banned him. So over the next 3 months, in addition to getting him all kinds of events and corporate things, I was able to talk the Tropicana Hotel into giving him another chance. So we went in and did 4 shows, sold them all out, just like that. Boom. Reopened Vegas again, So to make a long story short, so here I am with my Big Fish Entertainment. I am developing some young artists that, I believed in, but I have these iconic artists that I'm doing business that are keeping me alive and the lights burning and, making life better. And I came up with a brand called, from Richard's conversation, I put together a package called the Architects of Rock and Roll with Jerry Lee Lewis and Little Richard. And this was the angle when everybody, the marketing people would come and say, well, we don't know if we're going to be able to sell, that's an older audience. I said, well, it's not an older audience in Europe because everybody's educated. I said, you have to focus your press on the education of who these cats are. The fact that the Beatles got into the music industry because they heard Little Richard go, woo, because of Jerry Lee Lewis being the first artist inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. This is, for all intents and purposes, Abraham Lincoln and George Washington that are still living. And you put the focus on the media, on the educational side of what these guys brought to the table, that's how you're going to fill the room. We sold out every one of those events because of that.
It's amazing, man. That's incredible. That is... Okay, we just end there. I think that's good. No, but it continues. I don't even know.
Yeah, that's just it is. But
it's insane.
Go ahead, please.
Oh no, I'm just like, it is
No.
amazing to me that like you're not even through accomplishments at this point. Like it's so incredible and amazing that the story is like the development. Like most people go from, I guess, like a lot of people, I should say, think in terms of progress, right? And progress being this very slow, gradual thing, no matter what you do. It's just kind of like this slow, gradual thing. And of course, on the outset, like it sounds like it's quick, what we're hearing with this. It's not the case. There's a lot of work. I'm sure you worked 60 hours every single 24-hour day during that process. But really, just the fact that they always talk about in being an entrepreneur and everything as well, like 10xing, 100xing, like going into these big things, like you actually do that in all of these steps, right? So I think at the very least, I'm amazed at the story, but also I think it's incredible to share stories and these leaps already that happen to multiply your success so massively, because it really shows everybody that like it's doable. Like it's able, you can do these things and take these huge leaps, and as long as you work and you put a massive amount of effort behind it, it's possible. But again, amazing to me that we're not even through and you're already like, yeah, no big deal. No big deal. Little Richard, Jerry Lee Lewis, that's what I was doing back then.
So we were at, go ahead.
Please. No, please.
I was just going to say, so we were at, number one, I think, so many people are going to get such a kick out of hearing all of this story. So please don't feel like you're, saying too much or holding back. We want to hear it all. Everybody's so interested in this. So we were just at selling out shows with Little Richard and Jerry Lee Lewis, which is just incredible. What happens from there?
Well, the one thing I want to back up for a second and tell you guys that all along the journey, I always felt a presence with me. I didn't quite know what that was, and it turned out being God. I didn't really know God like I know Him now, but I recognize. I believe that just like I think I developed some very keen animal instincts. When you've technically been on your own since you were 14 years old, and when you've technically had to draw on your instincts to survive, when you meet someone, are they there to help you? Are they there to hurt you? What is their agenda? That I with those that discernment that I had, that I always felt this presence with me. And then later on, I figured out it was God there, and He was preserving me, to be here today.
Yeah.
Maybe the reason that somebody is going to hear this, to understand that the importance of that spirituality and how we have drifted away from that. And we see what happens to our world when we do. But, I know it's real. I've experienced so many supernatural things in my life that it's not even, it almost has a normalcy to it now. I don't even, and I take that as a great compliment of having, or not compliment, but a gifting, because we all have our gifts, guys. Unfortunately, 73% of us never grow to realize what our gift is. And that's sad. I want to see more of you realize your whatever your gifts are. And they're going to be different gifts than the three of us. But that's my wish for all of you. Because when you start understanding what your mission here is, you actually have a mission on this planet. It's almost like we're in this big, matrix per se. We have the giftings that we've got. We're supposed to work on those giftings to enhance them and maximize them. And then we're supposed to go out there as stewards in the world and make a difference. And mark it down. When we get to that next place, you're all going to go back and say, that guy Bernard figured this out. He told us this in advance. He was right. Your corresponding actions with everything you do, guys. Hey, I have a 9th grade education. I had to leave school to go to work. It wasn't intentional. I had to do it. I had to work. I had to provide. It's not what I wanted. I had for the longest time, I would have nightmares because I didn't go to college and I didn't think I was, and you have the little enemy on your shoulder telling you, you're not smart enough. You're not good enough. You can't do that. They're masters at what they do. That's their job. Okay. But I had to deal with that for a long, long, long time because that just was not in the cards for me. I actually wanted to be a doctor. That's what I wanted to be as a child. I wanted to be a doctor. But then I became so wise in the world because of mentorship and just real world education that I quickly figured out that is not in the cards for me. I don't have the money. I don't have the education scholastically. I am not going to be a doctor. But guess what, guys? That's exactly what I am. I'm just a different kind of doctor.
Very true. I mean, that's
You say?
like, I mean, so much out of that, right? So first, I appreciate that. I think a lot of people need to hear everything you just said. Incredibly beneficial, super incredible insights. And like, I really appreciate you for being here and sharing that. And again, connecting the dots for a lot of people that are out there in that percentage, that majority percentage that are kind of sitting back there going, you know, what am I? Well, what do I have? I don't know. I'm just going to do this thing. And like, that's good enough. But I think there is this massive, when you, I guess I could put it this way, when you stifle those potential gifts or what you're supposed to be doing and what's supposed to fulfill you, but also fulfill others through your fulfillment. When you do that, you do kind of feel this sense of something's off, something's wrong, something's not complete within me. And I think we've all been at places in our lives where we experience that, every single person. There are just some people that listen to that and realize that's a sign, and that's a direction that you have to tackle and handle and move into to really solve what's going on there and find a way to resolve that. And a lot of people don't realize that that is an option. I think a lot of us kind of sit back with the norms of society and what they see, and they're just like, no, that's normal to feel that way. That's fine. I'm just going to keep doing this thing, and I won't pay attention to that. I'll just hide it. But if you embrace it and you go into it and you try to unpack it and you try to find what that is, trying to lead yourself in the right direction, you really find this sense of flourishing and growth. That's just amazing. So again, I really appreciate that.
A lot of fascinating things happened around these guys. These guys were magical. They always talk to artists all the time that, you know, Little Richard had such a presence about him that he could be behind that piano and just slightly moving and just staring down the audience. It was the coolest freaking thing you've ever seen, because it's just the confidence level, it just puts off an energy. So it was an interesting study to watch both of them. Jerry had an alter ego. There was Jerry Lee Lewis, then there was the Killer. And when the Killer came out, there was no better artist in the world. I remember when we played the Ryman Auditorium in Nashville, sold out. Every major artist that you can think of was in the audience. And brothers, he took them to school. I mean, it was unbelievable. He turned, the Killer was there in full throttle, and the attack, the presence, the energy. And here's a man at that point that was in his late 60s. He killed it. A lot of supernatural things around Jerry. I remember one time we were, occasionally he would make me fly with him. It wasn't a request. It was like, you have to fly with me on this day. Okay. So I'd have to fly down to Memphis. I'd go over to the Signature Center. He had a Learjet. We get on that Learjet. We were flying into Myrtle Beach. Bandit was already down there. He had to come home for something. We were running late because of thunderstorms in the area. So I remember we finally make it down. We hit an air pocket in the sky. And guys, we're up there. We're up so high. I'm seeing stars on one end. And I'm looking down, looks like 5 miles down. I'm seeing the thunderstorm, which we're above. But it looked like it was eons away. So as we land, we have to go through that thunderstorm. That's where the scary part was. And it felt like we dropped, about 100 feet in that jet. And I could feel the blood rushing to my head. We didn't have any lights on at that point, but I could see the thunderstorm that we're going through flashing, ba-bam, ba-bam, and Jerry's sitting right across from me. And all of a sudden, guys, I realize where I am. I become present and I go, oh my God, I'm on a freaking jet with Jerry Lee Lewis. It's bound to go down. I mean, this is like I'm seeing rock and roll history here, and I'm on it. This is during the fall, guys. And the funny thing about it all, everybody that's on the little plane, we're all freaking out. We're thinking this is it. Jerry didn't miss a beat. He's still talking, telling his stories like it was nothing. But I'm still seeing that flash on him. Pow! And it was so cinematic. So when we landed, I said, well, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm overemphasizing what just happened. So I asked the pilot, I said, guys, were y'all scared just a minute ago? They said, you damn right we were scared. We were falling out of the sky. I said, okay, I was just making sure that wasn't just me over-exaggerating. So we're running late. We're trucking it to the venue. We get to the venue. When we opened the doors, we called ahead. The band had already kicked it off because they were 45 minutes late. And I'm trying to get Jerry to the stage. Paparazzi on the right side. They got a wire fence holding it back, but there's still the flash cameras. Pow, pow. Cameras going off. Jerry stops in his track, guys, to the point I run into him and almost knock him down. And he said, Bernard, you see that guy right there? And he's pointing at this guy across the fence. I said, yes, sir. He said, you get that SOB out of here. I said, okay. He said, I mean it. You get him out of here. I said, yes, sir. I certainly will. So I get Jerry back up to the stage, and Jerry Lee Lewis. And he goes on the stage, starts doing his thing. I look back down at the guy. This guy's as white as a ghost. So I walked down to him. I said, what was that all about? He said, well, back in 1974, I wrote an article about Jerry Lee Lewis, and I said he might be the devil. And I said, okay, all right. I said, why do you look like you're getting ready to pass out? He said, I've never met him.
Oh,
I mean, we're in a different city, guys. Jerry was able to, it ain't like Jerry's on the internet, like looking up pictures, guys. You see my point? It's like, I've never been able to explain that. There were things like that happened that are unexplainable.
Mm-hmm.
Unexplainable.
So what happened after that?
What happened after that is we had a banner season together. Mm-hmm. I started having what I thought were health problems. I didn't feel right. I just felt like something was really wrong with me. I went to my doctor. My doctor put me through every test imaginable. He found a little bit of high cholesterol, which was genetically. We got that under control. He said, Bernard, there's nothing really I can find that's really wrong with you other than this little high cholesterol. But something was telling me that something was wrong. Mm-hmm. So my doctor said, I want you to journal everything for 2 weeks. I want you to journal your diet, what time you go to bed, situations at work, whatever you want to put in it. I want you to journal for 2 weeks. And so I did it liberally all day long for 2 weeks. I turned it into my doctor. 2 weeks after that, after he'd read it all, he called me up. He said, I don't care how much money that you're making on Jerry Lee Lewis. He said, some of these stories that you are telling me and some of these situations are so absolutely ridiculous. He said, it's called stress. And he said, if you don't stop, you're going to die. You're going to have a heart attack. He said, that's what it is. So I ended up resigning that situation because of health reasons. Now, it wasn't always him, I must say. It was his wife, his father-in-law. It was just, if they had a reality show, gentlemen, people would not believe it. It is such, I could keep going. We could go on for days, me telling you stories that you would go, that's just unbelievable. It was just not reality. So, and my doctor was right. Now, was it hard walking away from that income? Yes, it was. But 2 months later, I felt like a new man. That's what it was. I didn't even realize it was stress and it was killing me like it was. But that stress was putting my body, my internal organ in such a strain. Because guys, as you know, the entertainment industry is not a job, it's a lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
It's always with you,
True.
you know, always. So I moved on from that, and here comes my third mentor, the great Stan Moress. Stan Moress moved from LA and really brought big business to Nashville, in my opinion. Francis Preston, who was the chairman emeritus of Broadcast Music Inc., BMI, brought Stan from LA. And Stan had a big business mindset because he was representing Gloria Estefan and Miami Sound Machine. He had the first global teen star, Leif Garrett. I don't know if you guys remember.
Yeah.
Every little girl in the freaking world had that boy's poster on their wall. Stan was managing him. So Stan came in, and we started a company called the Consortium. Okay, I still ran my Big Fish Entertainment. I was still doing stuff with Little Richard. I still had my publishing assets. But Stan Moress started a management company, and Stan was managing Lori Morgan and Clint Black, and he had a bunch of A-list country artists at the time. And then Stan recommended that we bring Mike Martinovich in, who used to be the head of marketing for Sony in New York and Nashville. Brilliant mindset. Mike was intricately involved in the marketing of Garth Brooks. So Mike came in as a partner. And then we brought Al Schiltz into the equation as a partner, who had Billy Ray Cyrus. For those of you young people, that's Miley Cyrus's father. So we had the Consortium, and that was a good business. We were an A-list management company based in Nashville, Tennessee, with the 4 partners, me being the youngest partner, but 3 very seasoned, very respected partners and mentors. Stan wanted to have his own record label. So we had a meeting about it. So Mike said, I've been doing some light consulting for a company called Broken Bow Records. And he said, maybe we can talk to Benny, who was the owner, about giving us our own imprint. And so that ended up evolving into our own imprint label with Broken Bow. But we also did the A&R and the marketing for that company. And that really set the tone for what Broken Bow was to be, because through our relationship, we had the ability to sign 3 artists to the label with Benny's blessing, the owner of Broken Bow Records. One of those artists that we brought in was Jason Aldean, who's obviously hot on the market right now, and the press, of course. But we ended up after we did that for 2 years, it was going really, really well. And then Broken Bow and us kind of felt like we needed to kind of go ourselves out on the deal that maybe I wish we hadn't have taken. But you know what? That's life sometimes, you know. I mean, I'm not disappointed about that, even though when Benny sold Broken Bow to Bertelsmann, which is BMG, he sold it for $100 million. So that would have been, have our little piece of that would have been nice if we'd have stayed in. But they did a good job even after us. They went on and did great things, signed a lot of artists. But we definitely were in the front end of that, and without question in my mind, I put them on the right trajectory and pathway. Okay, so from that point, with the partnership, once we sold out, I'm going to be honest with you, I wasn't feeling it. I wasn't feeling like the secular music side of the industry is where I wanted to be. I was having some serious talk with God. I was making money, but I wasn't fulfilled, guys. I wasn't feeling fulfilled, So I remember being out on I was consulting this resort property out on Lake of the Ozarks, and I was out on a boat, and God kind of gave me the vision for PCG, which stands for Premier Career Guidance, because it allows me to doctor people through consultations. I've got an amazing team of people I've put together. So here I am jumping out again. I started PCG, and we're out there trying to guide artists at every level, prodigies emerging artists, emerging pros. This is what we do. We're prescribing, we're looking at each individual artist. We're trying to give them what they need in their career, whether it be digital marketing, brand
Mm-hmm.
building, A&R, stage presence, vocal lessons, identity,
Mm-hmm.
brand, speaking, dealing with the media, nutrition, thought
Wow.
process, overcoming anxieties, you know, um, putting their business together, understanding how you make money in this industry, whatever it may
Mm-hmm.
be. This is what we do with PCG, and it's been a good business and a very gratifying business with what we're doing, and within our Prodigy division, I had a young man I signed out of Kentucky when he was 12. He was brilliant, this kid, brilliant pianist, guitar, songwriter. Signed him to Radio Disney when he was 13 and a half. All of a sudden, he started working. He wanted to work with digital marketing. And I know how he is. So when he asked me, was it okay for him to study that? I said, let me talk to your mother. Because we both knew when he gets on something, he's very like, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I talked to her and she said, if you think it's a good idea, I'm good. So we went down this path with him. Next thing you know, I'm starting to outsource business to this young kid, disclosing that he's a minor, but he's
Mm-hmm.
killing it. So all of a sudden, when he turns 19, I'm already filtering all kinds of business to him. He says, I want to be partners with you now. I want to start a company with you with digital marketing. So we set up a separate entity, and that thing is going through the roof. Now we got insurance companies, some of the
Mm-hmm.
biggest real estate companies in the world, motivational speakers, book authors, musicians, songwriters. So that's another thing. It just shows I sewed into him, and he's actually been one of the better partners I've ever had. He's 20 years old now, and he is rocking the world. And he's got Brock Douglas is his vice president.
Mm-hmm.
That's how
Yeah.
that's connect to Brock. Kind of
That's
ties us
amazing.
back in together. Yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible. Such an incredible story. And obviously, thank you for sharing it. You bring up this idea of social media. And obviously, since the times of a lot of the story that you shared, things have changed a lot. So, social media didn't exist, computers didn't exist back in the day. But one of the interesting things to hear you talk about is the development side, the artist development side. That existed then. And then fast forward to today, where artists are using things like digital marketing, social media, et cetera. The game has changed, so to speak, but the development side is still there. So I'd love to hear your take on how are things different when it comes to an artist. You know, most people would say making it or making any kind of getting traction in their career. How are things different now with social media, digital marketing, and the way that an artist has to promote themselves or be promoted than it was, back in the day?
Well, back in our day, our marketing was putting posters up on telephone poles.
Mm-hmm.
Come back and see us. Our marketing was trying to verbally cover that with people that we were going to be back in 2 weeks. Please come see us. Our marketing was picking up the phone and calling people and say, hey, by
Yeah.
the way, we're going to be back. Come on out and see us and bring your friends. So I feel for the artists of the day because you have a lot more pressure on you because you have to be business people, you have to
Yeah.
be marketing people, you have to be apt at social media, you have to be good at your craft. But the advantages are we didn't have the networking that you have with distribution.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have the ability to put our music out and somebody in India react in 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there
That's
are
amazing.
advantages to that too, you know. So it's funny that I had the honor of sitting down with a very famous scientist in La Jolla at the Scripps Institute, and I remember sitting on the boardwalk there watching the sun uh, go down. And at that point in time, we had just introduced the flip phone, so we were not at a smartphone level.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember him taking that phone out and telling me, Bernard, everything is going here. Your banking, your music, your interaction, all of that right here. But he said it's both good and evil. It's both, and it is both good and evil.
Yep.
You want to figure out how to do something bad, you can figure it out. You want to do something good, it's there. Your music, it's all there. I would be afraid to sit back down with that guy again to get a prediction on the next 20 years.
Yeah.
Because everything he said to me on that day has come true. And it was all based on science. It wasn't hypothetical. It was based on, this is what's coming, Bernard. Get ready. This is what's coming. He even predicted the storms. They're going to another level. That was before Katrina and all that. He said, we're going to see storms that are going to be at another level like we have never experienced before.
That's wild.
Blown away. Yeah.
So actually, we're, of course, as we always do, we're going to get into some of those predictions and some of what's coming in the future, which is, usually some of the most exciting stuff that we talk about. But before we move on to that, Bernard, I would love to hear, what would you say for, let's say, up and coming artists or artists who are trying to, make it on their own, out there posting on social media? Maybe they're posting videos on YouTube, probably, maybe playing a few shows. What would you say these days would be like your top 3 tips for somebody like that to get some traction?
Okay. Well, the first thing I want to say is, if something is moving you, it may not be necessarily even music. It could, when you're trying to build engagement and followers and subscribers and likes and reaction, if something is moving you in the world, the odds are it will move a certain percentage of other people in the world. So it's not always about you and your music. It may be about something you are experiencing in the world geographically. Like I've got clients in Canada, and if you saw their surroundings of the mountain ranges, which they don't even notice, we don't get to see that beauty. I said, take your camera and scroll that, and I go, oh my God, that is incredible. I would look at that. You're missing something that's right in front of you. Maybe it's a beautiful flower. Maybe it's a bird, just a moment. Capture those moments to integrate that into your life. There's a reason the reality TV is so wildly popular. People want to see real. And although that is not real, a lot of that's contrived, in some people's minds it's real.
Sure.
But in your posturing with what you do, in your promotion, just like, you're a world traveler, man, the experiences, with what you're doing to build that, a lot of people can't see what you're seeing. They will never be able to see what you're seeing in Denmark, but they can see it through you. You always have to be thinking of that. How does that complement, how do you integrate things that are other things in your life outside your music that, like dogs? There are a lot of dog lovers. Well, bring your dog into it. This is my dog. Introduce him to the world. It makes you real. It makes you approachable. It makes you like you're my friend. You have to think in terms of that. So many people get off base when they just think it has to be me and my music and that's it. Me and my music. No. What are the other attributes about you that make you special and make you endearing to this planet? That's what we want to see.
Wow.
And you know how you get to the ninja level with that? You will know you're at ninja level when it becomes fun. And the front end, it's work. But all of a sudden, you start getting a groove on it. And I see what Bernard's saying now. I went into this coffee shop. This is what I had.
Yeah.
There's a group of people that want to know that, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Wow. You see?
True.
So expand your horizon with your promotion in your engagement. Make sure you're aesthetic. But as far as your music, your song, put work into your craft. Make it the best it can be, whatever it is. Don't worry about the money and the fame. That can come. Don't worry about it. Don't put that as a focus. Put the focus on the music, the rehearsing, the practice. You guys have got YouTube. Man, what I've done to have YouTube or lesson-oriented things that you guys have, been involved in, had that at my fingertips. I had to physically go and get in somebody's presence to take a lesson.
Yeah.
Whole
yeah, man.
thing.
Man, I remember when like something as simple as Guitar Pro came out, right? So Guitar Pro, it just like reads the tabs and you just click and be like, play it 15% as fast and then increase percentage by 2% every time it repeats. So I can practice and drill this on the guitar. Just that, I was like, you don't know what you have. All right. You have no idea how amazing this is. I had 2 settings on a vinyl. All right. I had like half speed and 75% speed. That's all I had. But yeah, it's really great. So I like the advice too. What I'm getting from that, and John, I'll let you continue too. What I'm kind of getting from that is that though they have to focus on this element of all of the other channels. So, back in the day, you really didn't have to worry about all of these different channels of being able to connect with a network and an audience. Now they have that, and they should, but it should be really utilized as a way to connect personally with that network. Really share yourself personally so they see, oh, not only is this great music, it's a great human being behind the music that I really enjoy. They're real, they're authentic, they're genuine. This is somebody that I can see, like, in other words, this is somebody I could see myself running into at a coffee shop and getting a coffee with them. This is a really wonderful person. So is that kind of a good summary, would you say, of this idea of using all of these channels that they have to connect better with their audience and, of course, share their craft as well?
Yeah, connect is the name of the game, guys. Matter of fact, when we work with an artist in what we call live show production, which is working with them to create moments on stage, working with them to make them connect with each person like they're there for them, okay? You can take an artist, work with the live show production method that we do, go back into the same venue with the same amount of people, and the merch sales will go up 35%. Isn't that amazing?
That is. That's really
just by them understanding that, because what that tells us is that they connect with the people better, and the people want to take them home through their T-shirt, their ball cap, their CD, streaming, whatever that may be. They feel connected. That's what it's all about. That's how you monetize your career. You have to connect with your audience, artists, musicians. When you can put together the audio side masterfully and then the visual side masterfully with what you do and how you impact them visually. When those two are in sync together, and this is what moves this. You're in the job of heart moving, guys. You move that heart. How many times have you seen people they get emotionally charged from a piece of music, and they're not people that even cry, and they go, man, I'm crying. What the heck? Because the heart just went.
Yeah.
The heart just approved.
And I think it's worth restating what you're hitting at here, Bernard, because at the end of the day, you just said it, but I want to reiterate that at the end of the day, it's about connection. There's a reason music is called the universal language, right? And when you take off all the stage clothes, all the makeup, all the stuff that happens in the industry, at the end of the day, the essence of it is connecting with people. That's it. That's why we're here. That's why we do what we do.
There was a great lawyer one time. We were sitting on Lake Huron, and he leaned over in his chair. We were smoking cigars, and I only smoke one or two cigars a year. I'm perhaps sad. I'm mostly healthy, but when I do it, I want to. It's nice to have a nice cigar. Here we are having cigars, and he leaned over and looked at me, and he said, "Bernard, life is about relationships, both horizontally and vertically." I want you to think about that. That's the secret of life. Life is about relationship. The relationship and to connect with the people here on this planet, and your relationship vertically with the man upstairs. That's it.
Beautiful.
So this brings up something really interesting, and there's going to be a little bit of a twist here. So I think anybody listening, probably music fans, right? Otherwise, we wouldn't be listening to a music podcast. And all of us who have listened to music, played music, etc., we all know what we're talking about. We feel this organic connection with either the artist. If you've never heard the artist before, you've never seen them before, you hear a record or you hear a song, and you can cry, right? It touches you, it moves you, like you said, it moves your heart in such a way. So Bernard, here's where the twist comes. I'm really curious to hear what your take is nowadays that this whole revolution, if you will, of AI music, computerized music, how that, people are saying it's going to replace people in the industry. There's going to be AI artists and all that, which is technically it's fake, right? It's computerized. So I'm really curious, what's your take on all this?
Well, I think that it will have. Um, I think it will have an audience. I'm hoping that it'll be a small audience because I still believe in the real art form. But
Hmm.
when Elon Musk says that our greatest fear is not atomic weapons, it's AI, that's concerning. You know,
Hmm.
I saw, I saw because I have to stay up on all the social platforms um, because I can't advise on something properly if I'm not participating and studying. And
Sure.
I rolled up on this young boy um, sharing the page with a young girl, and they were like meeting for the first time. And the young man was gorgeous, but she quickly figured out that he wasn't real. He wasn't even real. He was AI,
Hmm.
but he was engaging with her. Like, how old are you? What's your name? And it was pretty good, but it wasn't quite. It was probably 98% perfected.
Hmm.
I picked it up. It wasn't real. It took her a minute, but that was a little scary. I think that um, um, I think that our art forms and our crafting will always prevail. There's always going to be an audience for it. I'm not going to say here and be say that there's not that it's not going to happen. There's not going to be an audience. If you look at EDM and some of the things that they're doing in music, I can
Hmm.
see maybe it has its own lane with that. There could be
Hmm.
a. This is not the first time they tried an AI artist. This what
Hmm.
was the guy back in the early MTV days that they tried that guy from the video? He wore the suit. I remember him. It didn't quite work then. But I could
Hmm.
see something like that working from almost a dance techno type of thing.
Hmm.
But I don't think anybody can really call it. I mean, I'm not going
Yeah,
to sit here and claim that I have all the answers, or I'm going to say that'll never happen. I think to a
sure.
degree that will happen, but I think they will always. Here's the good news for our artists and our song. There's always going to be a place for you.
Yep.
Always. Is the bottom line.
So this is
Because
my
we
last
need that
question.
human touch. We need the human touch of live performance. They won't be able to get us there, at least not in our lifetime. Maybe down the
Right.
road, they'll be able to perfect us as beings to a certain degree. We won't be able to tell. I don't know the answer
Hmm.
to that. I don't think I'll live to see that. But I think that the human side of the live performance and that engagement with us, we need that as people. And I think that that will always be the great separator.
Mm, fascinating. So
Okay.
Bernard, how do you see the industry, artist development, and even with AI thrown in the mix, how do you see the industry changing over the next 5 to 10 years, or not changing?
Well, I'm already seeing some of that where there's a lot of artists that feel that they don't need this development because they can get on TikTok and do something crazy
Mm-hmm.
and build their audience. And from that, they get signed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was a label executive I was talking to the other day that he signed an artist off of TikTok. But here's the thing, they're not giving them long, extended deals. They're only going to give them like a one shot thing. And if it doesn't work, they'll be gone. But if it does, they may try another. It's pushed us into a whole different way of thinking in the way that the deals are presented. Back in the 1960s and 70s, when they signed a band, if the first album didn't work, they'd keep going. They try another album. It ain't that day anymore. It's not even an album market anymore, unless you're
Yeah.
Beyonce or Taylor Swift. You know, it's a
Yep.
singles market.
Yep.
And you better be ready to make that single work because if it doesn't, the odds are you may not get another one.
Hmm.
Mm, yeah. I guess I
Okay.
didn't consider that either. I guess I didn't consider that while the speed of reach for a potential new artist is shrinking, like it's just quick, fast. Consumption is so fast on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, all these places. It's funny to think that the other side of the industry is shrinking in time as well, right? They're like quick action here, check me out, go through, check me out on TikTok, and then the offer you get is like, okay, well here you get this one shot, go through, do it, get done. It's almost like it's training every side of the equation to just be fast. Speed doesn't work, get off, go, keep going. It's interesting to see that, especially being somebody that comes from like listening to musicians back in the day that inspired my guitar playing, that would sign, 6 record deals, 7 record deals, to where it was very much like a first record, it's not that great. Same record label did record 2, 3, 4. They just kept going. And what do you know, when they hit record 3, it was a hit and they kept going. You had more of a chance, I guess, in terms of that side of the way you made it in the music industry. They gave you a longer term to try to figure it out, really appeal to the audience and make it. I've never considered that, because the way we're presenting music and artists is changing, deals are changing, and it's somewhat more difficult because you're not given that long-term development, like you just said. Something I've never considered, but it's pretty clear. So good insight.
Yeah. And it always concerns me about the way that, structurally, our writers, our artists are not treated fairly, with the splits that are out there with streaming revenue, and they're making the money. Why can't it be a fairer model? And I know we have great organizations like NSAI out there fighting for our rights with that, but we still have such a long way to go, guys. That's part of the problem, is we're not being fairly treated out there. And it makes me almost wish that we had a president or somebody in a very high level of power that had someone in their family that their income was affected, so they truly understand what, you guys are working so hard out there, but you're not being fairly treated in the way that splits are regulated. This is not me saying this, is a known fact, and that we're just inching our way. So we need dramatic change there, in order to be able to help you guys make a correct living, because the only way you can make a living right now truly is by getting yourself out there, performing live, selling merchandise, it just the whole thing needs to be reworked, in my opinion. But I think that, also, you just make sure that your mindset is right too. It's not just about your craft, and when you look at your songwriting and your presence and your musicianship, whatever it may be, that's a foundation. Now you got to have that. It's all these other things. Unfortunately, you're being judged by your stats out there. You could be the greatest artist in the world and walk into somebody's office, and the first thing they're going to do is they're going to look at your streaming numbers and your Instagram numbers, and if they're not significant, then they may say, come back and see me when you get these up. It's not about even the talent anymore. In most cases, there are exceptions to the rule, but in most cases. So, and that really bothers me, that, you have to get out and do something goofy. I don't know if you guys have watched what's been going on in Montgomery, but the big boating thing, the big boating brawl. I mean, it's unbelievable how that's hit the internet right now.
Yeah.
And it's something crazy like that, has made this family kind of infamous all over the world. Not the kind of press I'd want to have. But it's just crazy when you have artists like Bad Baby, who are not really artists, that get come off a talk show, say some stupid stuff, and then next thing you know, they're getting signed to a major label. Like, what?
Yeah. I mean, that is definitely one of the examples, right? But at the same time, it's so interesting to me, because it does really show you who's good at what some might call like the modern methodology of making it in the world we're in. But again, it boils down to, what's the motivation though, right? Is the motivation that she could piggyback on this stuff and make millions of dollars? Then okay, if that's what her goal was, it's achieved.
And she did that.
Yeah. But if the goal is use my craft, use emotionally what I connect with to connect with other people, and spread this feeling of energy and love, and using my music to do so, that's my goal. Obviously not going to be the same method, not going to be the same route, but it is making us kind of segment in the future, right? Do we just want fast fame and just skyrocket it and like have 4 singles that make me a lot of money and then just build a business on it? It's possible. So it's interesting to see the new segments of what people are using their art for ultimately at the end goal, versus in the 70s, 80s, where I was really listening to people. It's just, this is it. I just want to play music for people for the rest of my life. That's my goal. That's what I want to do. Now you have so many choices, so many options, and it's kind of hard to like keep them all organized and together and understand all those paths. But it's happening. It definitely is happening for sure.
Yeah, treat it like a business. And really the bottom line and the bar for me with every one of my clients, no matter where they are in the pecking order, is just being happy. Just being happy and do what you do. If you're happy wherever you are, that's success. You know?
Yeah.
And just keep working every day to increase that, whatever that is. Increase that visibility, increase that content, increase your skill set, increase your rehearsal, and just treat it like a business every day. Just keep inching. And sometimes great things can happen. But in my book, with my spiritual side, I'm also asking for that support from above. Help
Truth.
guide me, help bring the things to me, help remove those things that shouldn't be there. You know, I think that's a big part for me. You know, I'm not here to jam religion. I don't even like the word religion, to be honest with you. But my relationship with God, I'm not here to jam it down people's throats. But I can tell you that if you really look at the secret there, it's been that relationship for me. And if you want to grow that and understand that better, just ask it. I'd like to understand what he understands. Please help me do that. Please bring those things around me. Because I believe there truly, without question, guys, there is something to it. It absolutely fits into this conversation with what you're trying to do to grow your music, your brand, your craft, your visibility, your identity, your stature in the world. To me, it is a very important element. I'm not telling you this because I want you to think that Bernard is this honest guy because he talks about God. I'm not using that to sell you in any way, guys.
Sure.
I'm just telling you that I have lived it. I have lived in this jungle my entire life, and it is a jungle. The entertainment business needs to be treated like a jungle. There are beautiful things in the jungle. There are beautiful flowers. There are plants that can heal you. They're fun animals, beautiful animals, colorful animals. But there's also things in the jungle that can kill you, like snakes and tigers and quicksand. And if you don't know your way around, you need to have mentors that have been living in that jungle that can help keep you on the chosen path to get you through it safely.
Well said. Yeah. That's the other quote for a t-shirt or a mug as well. I think
Exactly.
Which one? What quote is that?
It's just about getting through the jungle.
Yeah, the entire jungle quote. We're gonna do it. I really enjoy it.
I was actually gonna say, Bernard, I was gonna ask you before I hand it over to Ryan to sign off, what one thing would you want to leave us with? But you know what? I think you just couldn't have said it better with the whole jungle analogy there at the end. So I really appreciate that. That's incredible. So Ryan, you want to take us away, man?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, thank you. Super appreciative, grateful for having your time here and your wisdom and you just being willing to share with all of us. And
it is an honor.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that. Art, we feel that it's mostly our side, but we'll take it, all right? Because it was a wonderful experience. And the insights are just so powerful. And I can tell just from the element outside of your business world and what you do, the side of you that is a human being. I just have to put it out there that we appreciate who you are, what you are to the world and beyond as well, right? So we want to make sure that we really let you know that it just comes off. I mean, you're just an incredible person. You've got an amazing heart, and we appreciate that and we love it, man. So
I think you.
it's obvious as well, Bernard, why you're able to help people be successful. It's very obvious to us. So we appreciate that.
Well, it's great. You guys have your gifts. It's very obvious to me, but it's great to have a gift and understand the gift and be able to go in and help people. You asked me earlier about what is it my focus now, and that's really it. Yes, I'm in business, but if I can help create people of similar mindsets that can go out in our planet and do great things and spread that, then it's my contribution to the world. So that one day when I do meet the Almighty, he says, "Well done, son."
Wonderful. And there you have it, folks.
That's it, man. That's an incredible sign off. Hey, listen, we'll make sure that we put all of the links in the show notes, the description, everything as to where you can find and follow Bernard. But of course, we've got pcgartistdevelopment.com. And then also your socials are literally just at Bernard Porter. So that's the easiest way to go follow you and look at the coffee that you're having at the coffee shop. That's right. But yeah, we'll make sure we link all of that stuff. We're going to put your full bio and everything because I think it's amazing. And I want to make sure that people get to read it and dig in. It's been incredible. I've had so much fun on this conversation, and I can't wait to see where our friendship goes from here. And
I'm here for you. You guys got my number. Call me, John, when let's stay in touch. We can Zoom, whatever, and just God bless you as you travel. And Ryan, just God bless, this whole thing that you guys are doing here.
Well, I appreciate that,
so
man.
Much.
And you as well. And to everybody listening, thank you for being here. And feel free to comment. We'd love to hear your feedback, what this did for you, what this means for you as well. But we will see you next time on the Future of Music podcast.